right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kapadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful that got there, pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, is dealing with a lesson. All right, going into united by faith. Okay, united by faith. You see, because what we have to understand, there's a connection, that's thicker than blood. And that might be what I call the lesson. Faith is thicker than blood. Okay, because we're coming into the time, to where people are going to have to depend on their belief system. Okay, people are going to lean and make decisions based off their belief system. And there's people that's our blood relatives, which at the end of the day, as Israelites, we all come from the same lineage, but there's going to be people from, our blood relatives, our close kin. Okay, they're going to make decisions based off their belief in this world. Okay, and it's going to be um, in opposition to what we believe. Okay, so we have to understand that we're a part of something where faith, is bigger than blood. Okay, it's deeper than blood. All right, faith is stronger than blood. All right, because there's certain men that's getting ready to have to die for each other. All right, based off of faith. Okay, they're not near kin. They're not cousins. Nephews, uncles. Okay, blood brothers. Biological brothers. Okay, but there's certain men. That's going to lose everything. Okay, for the sake of faith. Okay, there's going to be certain men willing to share anything in a time of scarcity because of faith. And you're going to have family that's going to draw back, become grimy, betrayal, but you have the same blood. So, we have to understand that faith, is stronger than blood. Okay, as we get into the trenches, we're really going to see that. All right, so that's why you go here, because what are we joined by? The thing that's the glue to everything that the glue to what keeps us united, what keep us strong to the bond that we have. Okay, is a belief. That's why you go to 1 Corinthians 1:10. Okay, and it reads, "Now beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Yahweh Shai Mashiach, that ye all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that ye be perfectly joined together in the same mind." All right, which that includes a belief. Okay, in the same mind and in the same judgment. Okay, in the same mind and in the same judgment. You see, so we are connected by a belief system. Okay, belief in Yahweh by Shema Shai. That's why we're able to be in sync with one another, because of the same belief, which comes from the same spirit. Okay, even the gifts that we have, guess what? They all come from the same spirit. Brothers got different gifts, but the gift that we have is all to forward the same agenda of the kingdom. Okay, so all brothers have, their gifts in this thing. All right, but what's the unity of these gifts? Brothers have different offices. Okay, as you go here to First Corinthians 12, all right, and 5, and it says, I started at 4. It says, "Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit." Okay, you read this in the NLT. First Corinthians 12:4. "There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all." So we all tie back to this one Spirit, the Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. So brothers come from different backgrounds, different age groups, different demographic, different social status. Okay, brothers have different gifts within the truth, man. Some brothers able to, expound on this more, expound on that more. They are specialists in this, a specialist in that. but it's the same source, man. Okay, we all joined at the source. Okay, which goes back to Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right, and it says there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. There are different kinds of service, but we have the same Lord. Okay, we have the same Lord, and that's the unity, man. And we serve the same power in truth and sincerity. Okay, and there's a certain fear that comes with being in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, and these people don't have that fear. All right, these people are going to be prone to do anything in these times, man, because they're going to be in survival mode because all they know is America. They don't have faith in the hereafter. You see, these people are going to get so grimy because all they know is this current situation. They're going to be trying to survive this current situation. Their decision making is going to be on thriving in these current situations, man, not looking beyond this situation because they don't have that belief. Okay? So it's going to be a major difference between those that believe and those that don't. Okay? These people are finna become more demonic than ever. Okay? More treacherous than ever. More manipulative than ever. It only gets more grimy for them. But for us, the Lord is bringing us in close, man, to believe more, to trust more, to have patience, man. Okay? So, reading on, it says, verse 6, it says, and there are diversities of operations, but it is the same power which worketh all in all. Okay? So it's the same power that's working throughout the body. It's the same spirit. You know? In the spirit, it has a certain level of charity, generosity, patience. It comes with correction. And it's all out of love. Everything is done out of love, even the rebuke. Okay? And you look at, nigga cultures, a culture where no one is correcting anybody. Okay? It's just a free fall. You see? You look at nigga culture, it's just a support system of wickedness, man. The most wicked people get helped the most in that setting, man. Okay? It's a backwards society. It's a backwards culture. Okay? We're unified by a culture of life. You see? We're tapping into immortality, man. And that's why when you go here, let's get this. Okay, in the book of 2nd Ezra 8. Okay, in 50. And it says, but understand thou for thyself. Okay, let me go here. Okay, I started at 50. It says 2nd Ezra 8 and 50. It says, for many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride. Okay? So the Lord's finna torment a lot of these people, man. All right? This is a time where those on the outside are finna be tormented, man. Okay? The Lord finna make a major difference, a major separation in the earth from those that believe and those that don't. And the Lord has us being separated now. It begins here in the spirit and the mind. Okay? And then it's going to transition into being physically separated from these people, man. Okay? And it says, but understand thou for thyself and seek out the glory for such as be like thee. Seek out the glory, all right, for those that be, all right, for such as be like thee. So we're around like-minded. Okay? When you give our resources and time, we make accommodations for the believers, man. The scriptures say we suffer all things for the elect's sake. Okay, we'll inconvenience ourselves for the believers, for the elect's sake, the hopeful elect. We'll accommodate the hopeful elect as much as we can, according to our ability. Okay, but for the world, nah, man, we done with it. Let the world have the world. Okay? Remember, we're investing into eternity, man. They're investing into death. That's completely polar opposites, man. Okay, the only thing that they could do by us giving that too much attention will be to take away from what we're doing. Okay? And it says, let's go back, because even when you go to the book of Tobit, okay, and Tobit was a very generous Israelite, but he had stipulation to his generosity. Okay, this is the book of Tobit, chapter 2. Okay, in verse 2, it says, and when I saw abundance of meat, okay, that was having a feast of weeks, it's Pentecost. All right, and it says, when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man, all right, soever thou shalt find out of thy brethren. Okay, so he's like, look, I got abundance of meat. Go get someone less fortunate to come, share in this feast. Okay, go get a fellow Israelite that's less fortunate to share in this feast. Okay, but then this the point. Who is mindful of the Lord, and lo, I tarry for thee. So he was like, look, go get someone less fortunate of our brethren. Okay, but make sure it's one that's mindful of the Lord. Okay, and I'm not gonna eat until you come back with him. I'm gonna wait to eat. You see, so he was making accommodation, okay, for his fellow Israelite. He was preparing himself to make accommodations for a fellow Israelite that was serious minded when it came to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Because as the scriptures say, let's get this, okay, the book of Galatians, and we go back to Tobit as well. You see, Galatians chapter 6, okay. It's Galatians 6 and 15, okay. It says, for in Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. You see? And see, this is a token of Yahweh Shai as we becoming new creatures. You look at, people that surround us, are they becoming new creatures? Okay, and granted, the Lord gonna have mercy, okay, on, certain Jake at the end, certain women at the end, okay, and the Lord gonna do what he gonna do. We can only deal with what we're seeing happen in real time right now, okay? So we are dealing with, all right, the believers that's becoming new creatures. All right, that's what we dealing with. We can build with that. Someone that's not becoming a new creature, you can't do anything with it. They'll take you backwards. Okay? So the Apostle Paul, even amongst those of the circumcision that knew that they was Israelites, they wasn't becoming new creatures in Yahushua. Okay? So even their circumcision was unprofitable to them. Okay? Because it was about becoming a new creature in Yahushua. This is what this grace period was allotted to us for, to become new creatures in Yahushua. Completely new way of thinking, new perspective, new outlooks, new conduct, different expectations, man. Okay, and that's what's unifying us. We're all becoming those new creatures in Yahushua. And that's why, hey, we're so relatable to each other, because we all going through this process together. The body is growing together, so we're so relatable to one another. Okay, that's why brothers are able to, fellowship and have these, link up and do these live shows, and link up off camera, and have these, extended conversations in the spirit, because we're all going through, okay, that process of becoming a new creature in Yahushua. Okay, verse 16 is the point. And as many as walk according to this rule, okay, peace be unto them, and mercy, and upon the Israel of the Most High. Okay, so as many as walk, okay, or they live according to this rule. And see, this truth is about principle, man. We have principles that we live by. That's what's unifying us, man, above blood. Okay, it's faith, man, unity, conduct, principles. Okay, the fear of the Lord, we're unified by that, man. Okay, read this in the NLT. It said, may the Most High's peace and mercy be upon all who live by this principle. Okay, there's new principle, man. So we live by principles, man. In Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Okay, you see? So, we try our best to be peaceable with all men. Okay, and we when we in the world, we have a poker face, man. Because this world is full of people acting and being hypocrites. So we put on to, there's a certain level that we have to, keep our poker face on, man. They don't know what's in here. Okay, we play certain roles. You go to work and you in society. You gotta play certain roles for certain people. Okay, but we know what it is right here. Okay, this society is up and running, so you have to deal with this world. You have to function and exist, and deal, according to whatever you got to do. We have the wisdom to do that. Let not your right hand know what your left hand doing. Okay, be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Okay, so we have the wisdom to maneuver, behind enemy lines. But one thing about it, we know what it is up here. We're respectful. And we're wholesome U.S. citizens in the world. Okay, we understand how to maneuver and blend in. Because that's a dynamic of the truth. That's an element of the truth. Okay, but how we really feel, how we really believe, most of the world won't know. Okay, until they push this thing out there and make us the face. Okay, make us public enemy number one, which it is what it is. You see, but when you go back here, there's a certain generosity that's only reserved for those who are like-minded. We go to restaurants, we tip good, we're sociable, we, likable people in the world, not just assholes, a lot of people, are drawn to the brothers. Okay. Like I say, it's gonna be Lord gonna have mercy. A lot of times, certain people that we come across and they do particular things and they have favor, man. The Lord gonna have favor on them. It's not meant for them to do what we do. But certain people the Lord gonna have favor on, for showing acts of favor, to brothers. So we always leave room for mercy. Okay? And always, you leave the door open for mercy. So we have a conduct, okay, that's that's noble, that's of a good report. We have a good report in this world. It's just us living according to this wisdom. Doing right by people. People don't have to know all your business for you to do right by them. Okay, they don't have to know, your belief system for you to do right by them. In that moment, that short moment in time or situation. Okay, so balance with everything. You see, but there's a certain level of generosity and charity, agape and love that's reserved for those that are like-minded. Certain level of intimacy, all right, familiarity only reserved for those that are like-minded. All right, so let's go here. Okay, to going back to the book of Tobit. All right, it's the book of Tobit, chapter 4, and verse 16. It says, "Give thy bread unto the hungry." Okay, and right now the spiritual bread is Yahweh Shai. The hungry is the elect that's starving for this truth, man, the hopeful elect. And of thy garments to them that are naked, covering them, because he was actually, he was telling Tobias to be generous. It was teaching him generosity, because Tobit was a generous Israelite. He's a real stand-up, Israelite when it came to his people, but there was stipulations. it was a certain Israelite that he preserved his generosity to, you know. And it says, and thy garments of them that are naked. All right, garment goes back to your conduct, being covered with his wisdom, you know. And it says, and according to thine abundance, give alms, and let not thy eye be envious when thou givest alms, you know. So there's a certain level of generosity, you know, because he pretty much like, look, you know, if you give according to thy abundance, you know, according to your substance, that's how you give, you know, and that's reserved for, you know, the brothers, man, whether it's the time or the actual resources. It's reserved for those that are like-minded, serious-minded men that's about this, man. Serious-minded believers that's really about this, man. You know? And it says, pour out the bread of thy burial of the just, but give nothing to the wicked. Now the bread of the burial is, you know, you would cook. All right, well Jake still do that today. You know, you send over food, all right, to someone, all right, that deceased, you will send food to the family, to their house. Okay, that's the bread of the burial. But he said, pour out thy bread, which I shower them, abundance. All right, pour out thy bread into the burial of the just. Okay, so there was a standard. You do this for the just, you see, but give nothing to the wicked. You see, so this is why, hey, Howard Shah said, what? Let the dead bury the dead. Okay, let the spiritually dead handle the affairs of the spiritual dead. Okay, we here to build up, all right, the just, man, the just in Yahweh Shai, because our righteousness is of him. So those that are living for Yahweh Shai, living by Yahweh Shai, become those new creatures in Yahweh Shai, that's who we, okay, pour into. That's what we pour into, man. Okay? He said to the wicked, give them nothing. You see? So let's go from there. Let's get it's the book of Sirach, chapter 37. All right, in verse 12. And it says, but be continually, okay, with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandment of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. Okay, because the longer we in the truth, man, get to the point, we can only relate to those that are like-minded. You know, those that believe what we believe. That's who we truly are relatable to. You know, those that have a mindset that's fighting in righteousness. And iron sharpen iron, man. You know, you see certain things, certain regiments brothers gotten on, and you can take from each other, increase each other's office, you know, sharpen each other's spirit. You know, when we come together, we leave stronger than when we came. We leave better than when we came. Okay? But in the world, it's all they pretty much do is draw from you and take away. Okay? And niggas not building towards nothing, man. Niggas don't have nothing going. You see? So it said, be continually with godly men. Okay? So whether we're reading the scriptures, whether we're watching videos, whether we're around each other, you know, in the flesh, you know, fellowshipping, you see, those are things that we emphasize on. Then brothers got their, you know, personal life that they, you know, maintain. You know, the brothers need their space. You know, certain brothers, you know, got more going on than others, but at the end of the day, you know, this thing is more and more about being around those that are like-minded. You know, this is what's keeping us unified. It's the faith, man. It's the belief. Okay, and it's getting stronger and stronger because our faith is increasing as we see these prophecies come to pass. As we get closer to the end, the Lord gonna keep tightening this thing up. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's get that in and I'll get this. We can close out here. I think it's Sirach 27 and 12. Yep, it says, if thou be among the indiscreet, those that, hey, that are not in this thing, those that are not of this truth, man. They're indiscreet. They don't know what time we in. They don't know what's to come. They don't have no discretion in the spirit about what it is. Okay? If thou be among the indiscreet, observe the time. All right? Which ain't limit that time. And it look different from, each situation to situation, because we in different circumstances. We got to deal, a little more, a little less, whatever it is. Okay? But as much as we can help, man, hey, monitor that time of being around, especially if you don't have to be. Okay? It says, but be continually among men of understanding. Okay? Be continually around men of understanding as much as possible, man. Okay? Because, hey, we coming to a time where we all we got. Okay? The elect, we're coming to a phase in this thing where we all we got. These people finna flip. Okay? And we gotta be in the spirit where nothing should surprise us, man. The Lord's already showing us, man. You come on, man. You look at the people around us, man. If they're not becoming new creatures, man, there's a major chance that the Lord not dealing. Okay, He's not gonna ever deal. Some He might wake up at the end, but there's gonna be beautiful. But we gotta deal with what is, man. Okay, and be honest, when we make these assessments, okay, about what's going on around us, man. You see, so Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters, edify once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Kapadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing, salutation, and hopefully, shalom.